Hello Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for Choujin X Chapter 18. When we last left our heroes, Yamato Mori got up to some torture, as the second in command, whose name I don't quite remember, his interrogation of Nari led to him implanting the image of fly larvae crawling out of her skin until she cracked. And she didn't crack, to her credit, but you know, it's one of those things that's like, Ishida's building up this whole, Yamato Mori is like not as pristine as they seem. So keep that in the back of your mind. Meanwhile, Momoma was going to go on a shopping trip with Ely, but she got distracted with work, so Tokyo went on the trip with her instead. And while they were there, they encountered the love of my life, Boxman, who was so fed up with the waste of a capitalist society that he started turning people into boxes. Like, good for him. He was eventually stopped by Tokyo and Ely because they couldn't really let him do that. But there we meet a freelance keeper. So with that, we're sort of introduced this idea of Choujin doing good outside the more rigid structures of Yamato Mori, which again, I think will be important going forward as Tokyo continues to ponder what he wants to do with his life. But then Tokyo and Ely go home, and on the train, who is sitting next to our boy Tokyo, but Ume, the origami dog Choujin, who's working with Ricardo and the no mask guy and that whole shit. So that's where we leave off. And with that all said, let's jump right on into Chapter 18, Hip Hip Hooray and Heave Ho, Part 1. Which is quite a title, but I'm guessing this is going to be the start of our next real big arc, especially with Ume right next to Tokyo. But we open on the train station. At the train station, Tokyo and Ely have gotten off. And Ely comments, "What a ruckus." And Tokyo tells her, "Oh, right." And we have this little bit of what might be narration, might also just be Tokyo telling this to Ely. In July, Yamato holds its Hishizume festival. The area has always been subject to frequent blazes, so the residents came to fear and revere fire. And we see Azuma with some of his other friends. It's the girl from the corner. Azuma, let's talk to her. And Azuma, who's I guess at this festival, she's just sort of uncomfortable with that or something. These days, the Hishizume festival is more of a mere celebration for good health, but residents of Yamato and tourists from neighboring prefectures still flock to it. And then they're sort of walking through the station. We hear on the intercom, the train is now departing from platform 3. Do not rush into the train car. Such actions pose a safety risk. And Tokyo tells her, "We're here, so we might as well take a look, right?" And Ely tells him, "Sure. It's fun even just looking at the stalls." And then Ely sort of stops for a minute, and we see Tokyo. She notes that Tokyo is covered in Ume's origami dogs. Tokyo, you got something on ya? And then those same origami knives from Ume's quick little scene last chapter are now flying towards Tokyo. Whoa, what? And the knives, they stab him in the head. I mean, I'm sure he's not going to die. We haven't really seen Choujin having the same sort of regenerative abilities that ghouls had. So I don't know. We'll see what comes of that. Maybe because they're paper, they don't really do much damage or something. But he's knocked over onto the stairs. Ah! And then we hear this clang, clang, clang sound effect. And yeah, Tokyo is knocked on the ground. A pool of blood emanating from his head. And he's just lying there. We hear this, there, from somewhere in the crowd. And Ely panics. Understandably. And then we see these, we get these dancers, I guess a part of the festival, as the intercom goes on. Yamato's largest festival, boasting 250,000 visitors annually, the Hishizume Festival. The dancers are back this year, praying for good health as they fill the streets with their procession. And Ely is just as this is playing, Ely just shakes Tokyo. Tokyo! And we cut to Ume, just sort of standing there. And I think Ely sees her, or she disappears from the top of the stairs. I think someone says, huh, as she disappears. And it looks like Ume is like teleported, it looks like, down the stairs, cutting off Ely. There's also this line here on that first panel of page 5 I missed. Someone fell. Are they bleeding? But then anyway, Ume warps in front of Ely, freezing Ely in her tracks. Because, shit's getting real right here. Ellie's sort of in a panic right now. And Ume goes right on the attack, lunging at Ely with something, some kind of weapon, I guess she's made with her paper. Ely ducks out of the way. And this guitar case falls over. And we see that Ume had, what was actually in the guitar case was a pair of giant scissors. That's what she used to try to stab Ely with. But yeah, Ume's here and is on the attack. No rest for the weary here. And Ume brings the scissors down on Ely, and Ely picks up some pebbles from the road where she's fallen over, and she throws them at Ume. Ume dodges them, and the onlookers go on, huh? A fight? Ely takes Tokyo and books it. Ume turns to go after them, and we cut to the festival. Welcome. Fancy some Yaguro candy? And Ely, I think to create a bit of a smoke screen, is spewing smoke from her feet to try to block Ume's vision, and goes flying through the air. Actually, she's not just a distraction; she's using that as a propellant. And Ume watches as the crowd still chatters. Whoa, what was that? And honestly, I'm a little confused here. Are they near the festival with this? Is the festival right outside the station or something? That's my best guess, but I don't really know exactly. But anyway, Ume gets out some paper and folds it into a paper airplane. And we cut back to Ely, who's still carrying Tokyo. Don't you give up on me, Tokyo! And Ume throws the plane. It goes over the dancers of the festival. And I don't know why, but there's something about the way these dancers are in silhouette. It's just a really nice artistic look. But anyway, the plane flies. It looks like Ume has thrown it, and we see it at that top left panel of page 9. It's over the dancers, and then we cut to the next panel, and it's just been thrown. Maybe she's throwing a fleet of planes. Oh no! Okay, so I guess this is similar to the warping she did earlier in the chapter. She's able to warp to where the plane is. So now she's up in the air. And I guess is also able to just keep throwing it from there and keep on warping. But Ely is still flying. Tokyo, wake up! My smoke! And she's headed towards the train. Ain't gonna make it! And it does, kind of, but they end up bouncing off of the train. Looks like as the train is coming into the station, though. But they land just outside the station, I think. Ely on top of Tokyo, and she just shakes him. Tokyo, come on! I mean, the man was stabbed in the head several times just a second ago. I don't think shaking him will wake him up, Ely. But what else can you do in that situation? And Ume lands on the train behind her. Tokyo does make a little noise though. That ugh. He's definitely alive. He's not doing great, but he's alive. But Ume just throws more knives at the pair. Ely sees them and throws up her smoke to deflect them, actually. And one of the knives lands by Tokyo, who's conscious now. So I guess those blades didn't do a lot of damage. We see he's clearly bleeding. There's a trail of blood down his face. But I guess it only went a little bit into his skin, is my best guess. But he picks up the knife. But paper? The heck is this? And I guess I'm not quite sure he realized what was going on, given that he's been unconscious for a little bit. But he looks back to the fight, and as the intercom goes on, the train will be departing from the B line. We get the narrator's description of Ririka Umezawa, the Kirigami Choujin, ability Paper Moon October Queen. I'm not sure why she has two names there, but also she's just listed as being a Kirigami Choujin and not origami. And I googled Kirigami, and Kirigami versus origami came up. And the difference is that Kirigami has glue involved. Okay, this is a bit more of a broader term than origami, I guess. Anyway, shapes that she fashions out of paper are endowed with the properties of the objects they represent. For example, her paper knives are as sharp and durable as knives made of metal. Though they were still just deflected by smoke, so like, they're not super durable. And Tokyo, somehow, like, he has an image of seeing her like, bounty poster. Because he thinks, there's a bounty on her. But, like, Ume looks nothing like her bounty poster. So that's a little bit of a stretch. Almost as if, like, he got the narration bit that we got, but that makes no sense. But anyway, she disappears. Ely! And Ely calls, Tokyo! She's coming right at us! And Tokyo readies full beastification. And he does transform just in time to deflect, to try to, like, block Ume's scissor blade. And he does pretty well, shocking Ume for a moment, but that's quickly replaced with determination as Ume confirms that she has found her man. Found you, beast. But before she can do anything, Ely throws a whole bunch of smoke her way. Take that! And Ume jumps over the smoke, readies her blade, and does something. I can't quite make out what's going on in that top panel of 15. I think is the page we're on. Yeah, 15. Something happens and she ends up landing back onto the train. Okay. So Ellie's line is, did she just turn thin as paper? And Tokyo notes, she did. So I guess that's part of her abilities too? Is turning into paper? Okay. That's some interesting stuff there. But we see Ume just like spinning her knives around, and then she launches them all at the duo. Ely makes a shield of smoke, but Ume breaks it with her feet and kicks Ely away. Tokyo calls Ely! And Ely flies through the train and out the train, rolls over, and Tokyo books it to go rescue Ely. I can tell that she's not somebody we can beat. Alright, so like right away, like, okay, fuck, we're outmatched. We gotta run. She's like a far later boss fight than where we're at in this story. But anyway, so yeah, he picked up Ely, and much like Ely rescued him earlier, he's now rescuing Ely. But Ume has a bit of paper dynamite and a lighter. And she tosses the dynamite as Tokyo thinks, I'll grab Ely and try to get away from here. And he lands, still in full beast mode. No one seems to be panicking, but the dynamite lands right in front of him. The Line D train will be departing soon. Please exit on the right. Thank you for riding with us. And as Tokyo watches the dynamite, he thinks, you can't do that! But she does. Boom. I mean, I'm assuming maybe it's Choujin, Tokyo, and Ely will be fine, but there were still a lot of people on that platform that I think are all dead from Ume's attack. And we see people outside the station notice this. Huh? Whoa! What the? And from the dust, the dust slowly clears in the explosion. And we see Tokyo. He's defended Ely. His arms are like torn up, it looks like, from the blow. But he has defended Ely. And also maybe a bunch of the passengers? Like, there are people behind Ely who seem not dead there. But then something happens. His vulture mask starts to crack. And there's this, like, lightning surges around him. And it keeps cracking and, like, literally crumbling apart. And he falls over as Ely calls, Tokyo! And just then, chains appear and have caught Tokyo. And they're, of course, Ume's paper chains. And she, with those chains connected to her arms, pulls Tokyo to her. And Ely, in this like desperate attempt, latches on to Tokyo. And we get this like tug-of-war match between Ume and Ely. And despite being like half Ume's size, Ely is not giving up without a fight. She is fucking going for it. But then, still, like, wrapped up in her... Like, I think Ume has, like, used her chains to, like, propel herself to Tokio and Ely to kick at Ely again. And she does. That heel goes, like, right into Ely's face. And Ely's sent flying. We see... I think it actually was the heel of Ume's shoe that went into Ely's eye. Because we see when Ely falls, when Ely's sent flown back, the eye we can't see in the earlier kick. And there's a squelch sound effect too, which now that I realize that's a fucking eye getting squished is pretty damn ick. But that eye is like blacked out. And when we see Ely, there's this huge gash from like here to her eye on that side of her face. So that's some like major fucking damage Ume just did. And the passerby are slowly realizing they're like stuck in the middle of this fucking Choujin fight. Wait, for real? And Ume just picks up the chained up Tokyo as Ely's down for the count there. Ely is out. She's lost. I don't think there's any way she can really do anything there. And Ume wins. Someone, I'll get the station staff. And Ume just like holds her hand down in front of Tokyo and turns him into paper. So her powers seem like there's a whole lot to her powers beyond just the little bit that the narrator tells us. And so I'm actually going to go on a limb here and say that this little bit of information we have on Ume, I'm going to assume that's like officially from Yamato Mori. That Yamato Mori has this information on her, and when Tokyo realizes that that's her, he remembers that information. That's my best guess, which is why it's so incomplete, because Yamato Mori maybe doesn't know everything about her. But anyway, she can also turn people into paper, as we can see. As she turns Tokyo with this neatly folded piece of paper. And she just slips him in her pocket and walks away. And then we cut to Azuma. I can't believe all these people around here. It's ridiculous. And Azuma looks back. I think he sees Ume in the crowd, though he doesn't quite realize what's going on. Did something happen? Let's head home that way. But I guess Azuma runs off without his friends. Wait, Azuma, where are you going? And Azuma tells him, you can go home ahead of me. Huh? Hey, wait! And Azuma leaves. And then we cut to Ely, who from the, like, gash, from where her eye was, like, you know, stabbed in with the heel, smoke rises from her hole. And I think this might be, I think this part is like someone in the crowd. Whoa! Her! And Ely is just like, she tries to get up with this like smoke pluming from her face. And then someone calls to her, Oda. And it's Azuma, of course. Where's Tokyo? And also we see that once Azuma calls to her, the smoke leaves her eye and her eye is healed. I guess the smoke has some kind of regenerative capabilities, which is interesting. You know, it's not just like cauterization, because her eye is healed when it was like gashed in. I don't know. That sort of remains to be seen, I think. Okay. So despite the fact that there should be 52 pages, give or take 4, thanks to Manga Plus's manga reader, page 29 is just a blank white page with the title, Choujin X, and like the guitar case. Oh, okay. It's a 2-part. I thought Hip Hip Hooray and Heave Ho would be like the next several chapters. Like Sinker was 6 chapters. Sinker part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, part 6. But here, the chapter itself is just cut in 2. Like, arbitrarily, given how Choujin X works. This isn't like, you know, To Your Eternity, where Oima just wants more chapters with the same title, and so, you know, 155 is now on its 6th part and possibly counting. Ishida can really do whatever the fuck he wants with his release schedule. So it's weird to me that like he feels the need to have this be in 2 parts. I wonder if that's going to come to anything. But either way, part 2 is still here. We're going to keep on going. We still have another 20 pages left. Chapter 18, Hip Hip Hooray and Heave Ho, part 2. And we sort of pick up basically where we left off with part 1. I think. Or no, actually, we're just somewhere else in the town. It's the middle of the night, and Tokio wakes up. And we zoom out, and he is still a piece of paper. I feel kind of floppy. Yeah, I sure fucking bet you do, boy. And someone calls Yowza. This is my boy Ricardo, who I love so dearly. And with that, Tokio starts to realize where he is. And Ricardo goes on, "You finished the work too quick, Ume. You did all that while I was napping?" And Ricardo notes, "Oh, he's awake." And Tokio thinks, that woman from earlier. And an octopus? Make with our Cthulhu dad over there. And Ricardo notes, "I guess I'm not getting a cut this time. I suppose." And Ume tells Ricardo, "Please watch him until the apothecary comes to recover him." "You got it." Eva gives a little salute to her. I thought they were equals. Is Ricardo maybe Ume's subordinate? I don't know. But Ricardo notes, "I bet you could mail him off if you wanted to." And Tokio, I think, is starting to realize the exact situation he's in. Huh? I've been kidnapped? Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that's happened to you. It's not quite the biggest thing, though, now that you are a slice of paper. Note that, please. But then we cut to Ely and Azuma. As Ellie's like in a phone booth, I guess calling Yamato Mori. "Tokio got nabbed, and we were attacked. I didn't recognize the Choujin. What do I do?" Which means that Tokio recognized her and Ely didn't, which is interesting, given that Ellie's a bit more, into the Yamato Mori crowd, society, or whatever. But anyway, we see Simon's on the line. "Calm down. Where are you right now?" And I guess Ely answers and Tokio, and Simon responds, "A payphone? That's not what I mean." And Momoma thinks, "Kurohara," and then says, "Passing the phone, Kagamura." "Oh, no. No, it's not. It's not Momoma there. It's our fucking torture boy from last week. Sato, his name is." He picks up the phone. "Oda, it's Sato. Tell me about this Choujin." And Ely tells him she used paper knives and a bomb. And from that, he can work out who it is pretty easy. He does know who this person is. That's enough. Got it. And Sato just sort of comments, "So they were after Kurohara then. I think I know someone over here who might know what's going on." And we cut back to Nari, who is still deeply traumatized from Sato's torture last chapter. I don't know. I still don't find Sato to be the most trustworthy of individuals. And then Ely asks, as Azuma kind of watches, Ely asks, "What do I do?" "All right, I'll wait for Kagamura and the others to come." And then Azuma runs over. Excuse me. If it grabs the phone from Ely, Ely's just, Higashi? And Sato notes him, "Huh? Who is this?" "I'm Tokio's friend, Azuma Higashi. I know about what's going on with Tokio physically. If anything's happened to him, please let me help too. When it comes to resilience, I'm positive I can beat out anyone. Even though I'm just a normal person, I still want to help." And so there's this interesting thing, that even though I'm just a normal person is like this bolded speech bubble. And given how weird the fact that Azuma is a normal person is, that feels relevant. Like Azuma's hiding something. I don't know. There still is just something weird around Azuma's whole story. I've been kind of confused by him since like the pilot. But anyway, I still want to help. And Sato just cuts him off. "No. A normal person will only slow us down. And if you died, it'd be on us. I can assure you we'll do everything we can. We'll report back on whether Kurahara is safe after. Now, if you'll excuse me, and Azuma tries to protest, I want, and Sato hangs up. Again, after last chapter, I'm just utterly unwilling to trust Sato on any point whatsoever. He is the exact opposite of trustworthy, in my opinion. But anyway, Sato hangs up, leaving Azuma there. And Simon asks Mr. Sato, what was that? And Sato tells him, nothing. Could you head over to Oda? And I can't think of any reason it would be important that Sato is keeping Azuma's existence from Simon, but I'm still just deeply mistrustful of him. After the whole torture thing last chapter. But anyway, Ely hangs up the phone and tells Azuma, I know how you feel, but if anything happened to you, Tokyo never forgive himself. I'll chip in for you. And Azuma, calling all the way back to that first chapter, sorry, sticking my nose to things is a bad habit of mine. Which, again, I don't know. I feel like maybe Azuma will still end up getting involved here somehow. I can still see him trying to get involved in some way, shape, or form, and maybe that ends up awakening his latent Choujin powers that the serum should have given him. I don't know. But anyway, Ely tells him, please, oh no, this is Tokyo's line still. Don't push yourself too hard, Oda. Uh-huh. And then we cut to somewhere else in the prefecture. I think that might be where Ricardo and Ume are. We can see that telltale tower behind that building, though. And yeah, we see Tokyo is still a sheet of paper, just chilling with Ricardo. It's just Ricardo and him now. Ricardo is just relaxing. I love this man. And Tokyo thinks, my stomach can still growl at a time like this? Because there is this gurgle noise from Tokyo, I should have mentioned earlier. And Ricardo hears that too, and Tokyo thinks, and says, sorry. And Ricardo approaches, his hand raises over Tokyo. Tokyo kind of panics, eep! And Ricardo taps on Tokyo, and Tokyo becomes a person again. And Ricardo just asks him, you in the mood for pizza? I love Ricardo so much. He's my fave. He's just this sure, he's kind of an evil mercenary or whatever, but he's just a nice guy. I love him. He's gonna get his hostage pizza. What a man. We stan. And a little bit later, Ricardo gets the pizza from the guy. Just gonna stare at him with the fucking tentacles. I love this guy. Thanks a bunch. He's so polite. This man is so fucking polite. I love him so much. And Ricardo notes Tokyo. What? You gotta be hungry. It's good. It's from Domino's. And Ricardo just thinks, well, guess as Tokyo is still silent, Ricardo says, well, guess we did grab you out of nowhere. And who'd want to share a pie with someone you got a mug like mine? Don't sell yourself short, Ricardo. You are gorgeous. And Ricardo just goes on, but consider it, will you? Besides, your hand is already dealt, whether you eat the pizza or not. And that's just all of a sudden, that's just, all that sort of levity from Ricardo is just sort of dashed with a reminder that, right, no matter how nice Ricardo is here, he still plans to give Tokyo to Mr. No Fate, Mr. No Mask. But either way, I still love the man. The fact that he's evil it's a minor problem. Ricardo tells him, so why not make the best of things and have a slice, right? And Tokyo's got full on sparkles behind him as he drools for the pizza. Stuff's good. Here, have at it. It's a symphony of cheese and salami. And Tokyo, as he drools, reaches for the pizza, cheese and salami, symph, and he freezes, flashing back to Ume's attack at the train station. And he turns away, not willing to break bread with his kidnappers. That Choujin from earlier. She didn't care whether she hurt the people around us. And he's in cahoots with her. And he is in cahoots with her. He looks nice. Wait, actually, he's terrifying. Okay, I mean, he's both nice and terrifying, Tokyo. People can be multifaceted. And Ricardo tries to get his attention. Come on, it's getting cold. You sure you don't want any? Here, take it. And Tokyo thinks, and Ricardo looks, They're bad guys. and we have this image of him and like a young Azuma in like their like capes, pretending to be like superheroes, climbing one of those little like metal ball jungle gyms things. Have it your way. Tuh. And as Tokyo continues that fantasy, the line continues, aren't they? Which again, I've been looking at this show's like, slowly graying morality through the lens of Yamato Mori being far more fucked up than they first appear. And I had generally been taking Ricardo's overall politeness as an example of more an affable evil, and not like he's actually a good guy. But looking at it this way, looking at this little bit, they're bad guys, aren't they? Seems to be calling into question this idea that they're simply the villains. And while I don't really, while I fully expect that Chandra and the Masked Man and the Beast thing from the end of the Sinker arc are all definitively evil, I'm not so sure about these guys. I don't know. All remains to be seen. Anyway, we're back in Nari's jail cell, so Sato can torture her some more. Kagemura, I know where he is. Oh, no. He's on the phone. He's not taunting Nari. He's finished torturing Nari some more. Okay. Kasato is never not fucked up. I do not like this man. But he's on the phone with Ely and Maiko and Simon. They're in a place called the O'Neill Motel in Minami City. It's right above an abandoned white condo, about 4 kilometers southwest. Okay, that did not seem to be a motel to me. I don't think a high-rise can be a motel, unless Nari's wrong. But Simon and Maiko say, we're having Oda scope it out first, but we're up against a pro. And Sato tells them, she gets found out. Don't engage, just run. Or you might get killed. And we see the trio gets in a helicopter to go scope out the condo. White condo, O'Neill. Alright. And Ellie readies her smoke and flies out, going to go scout out Tokyo. Tokyo, please be safe. And then we leave off on Azuma, who's been listening in with the same fucking, radio thing he was using back in the first chapter, and thinks, O'Neill and Minami City. To be continued. Okay. So there's a lot of good shit here. There's not a lot of thematic work going on here in the way that Pack did and the Aftermath of Sinker did. There's a whole lot of theme stuff going on there. And that's still somewhat there for this chapter, but it's mostly contained to that one they're bad guys, aren't they page. And just the general note of Ricardo just being so fucking nice. Ricardo is a delight, and I hope he sticks around for a long time. He's just a fun fucking character, and I want to see as much of him as physically possible, because he is an angel, and I love him. But yeah, that for a thematic standpoint, that's really about it, as far as I can tell at least. There's plenty of plot and good action here, though. As we have that initial clash in part 1 between Ely and Tokyo and Ume, as Ume just outmatches them in every turn. The duo tries to do something, even if it's just retreat, but it all ends up coming for naught, thanks to that fucking dynamite that Ume threw. And Tokyo was somehow able to stop anyone from getting hurt, but as a result, he was knocked unconscious, allowing Ume to just take him. After a brief scuffle with Ellie, but she just outmatches Ellie in every way at this point, so Ellie was sort of shit out of luck there. But that got Azuma involved, which will certainly be important going into chapter 19. But things kind of calmed down a little bit in part 2. There was no real action here. Just a lot of people getting ready for this next fight. As Ellie lets the rest of Yamato Mori know what's going on. And Ricardo and Tokyo ends up spending a good deal of time with Ricardo. And there's something about that dynamic, that Tokyo and Ricardo dynamic, that feels like that final aren't they line is the last thing we get of Tokyo here. And it feels like, on some level, You know, it's interesting to me that, like, you have that page in particular, that page 45 in particular, you have it's the visual there is that flashback between, that flashback with Azuma and Tokyo, but it's about Ricardo. They're bad guys, they're bad guys, aren't they? Is a question drawn up specifically about Tokyo, right? Or not about Tokyo, about Ricardo. It's about Ricardo. And the only speaker in that part is the "have it your way." That's Ricardo speaking. And then the rest of the page is all what's his face? I'm blanking. Sato. It's all Sato. And Sato, you know, is this fucking torturer who works for the good guys, which makes those good guys seem a little bit less good. And that all feels relevant to me. I can't quite put into words exactly where Ishida is going with this. It's still just a little bit too early, even if it's becoming clearer and clearer with every chapter. It's still a little bit too early to see where Ishida is going with all of this, but that seems to be important. You know, Ricardo and Sato, as a contrast, are kind of interesting. Sato is this, you know, Ricardo is an amiable seeming villain, whereas Sato works for the good guys, and everything he does is for justice and the law or whatever, but he also tortures people like it's nothing. Like, he does not fucking care about them. So, you know, definitely stuff there. But with that said, that torture does give Simon and Maiko and Ely what they need to go after Tokyo, and also ends up giving Azuma what he needs to go after Tokyo. And that last panel, there's no way Azuma's not getting involved. He's going to be on his way. You just fucking know it. But yeah, all in all, tons of good stuff here. The plot just like suddenly, you know, took off and ran. And honestly, I can't wait to see what happens next. So with that said, I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe. You know, do whatever makes you happy, you know. And as always, your life is your own, okay? Bye!